September 2022, North Texas. A blacked-out Corvette cruises down the highway, cooling off after a high-speed run. A police cruiser pulls in behind him and starts running the plate. Then the officer sees it. Will run. This is not some random driver. This is exactly who they have been looking for. The cruiser flashes its lights, then the obvious happens. The driver's name is RlySlo, and from that moment on, street racing would never look the same. What followed wasn't just another chase. It was the start of a movement that spread across America. Racers tearing up highways under the same banner, sending one message to the cops: you can't catch us. At the center of it all was a driver with some of the most insane builds in modern street racing, determined to build an empire from the shadows.
How long do you plan on remaining anonymous?
As long as humanly possible.
But there was a catch. Police weren't about to take this lying down. Soon enough, Slow was locked in a bitter war with law enforcement, where the price of losing was way more than a night in jail. This is the story of RlySlo, the street racer who got so notorious. He ended up on the FBI's radar. It all started in 2022, around 6 months before the infamous clip surfaced. Video after video began popping up on a TikTok page by the name RlySlo, each one depicting more expensive cars and more extravagant stunts.
Oh my God. What is this? Oh. Is it like a turbo boost?
This guy drove bikes, supercars, anything he could get his hands on, but his favorite ride of all was the same as so many street racers out there, the Corvette C7. But we'll get to the crazy modifications later. First, we have to explain exactly what it was that made RlySlo explode. You see, the stunts he pulled were nothing unique. Other groups like Ghost Racing and the Squeeze team were doing exactly the same thing, gaining notoriety in a budding street racing movement with more than enough momentum to include them all. So what was it that set RlySlo apart? As it turns out, everything was by design. Even from the beginning, RlySlo had guarded his identity better than any other street racer. Squeeze Benz was exposed and arrested. License eventually crashed out too. But as everyone fell off around him, one man remained untouched. All because he understood one thing better than anyone else. His anonymity was his greatest advantage. From the shadows, he founded a team of racers known as Quiet Racing, posting videos on YouTube that were more like movies, featuring him and his teammates racing around recklessly through the night, pulling stunts, taunting cops, and building up their infamy with every single post. To the people flocking to watch his videos, RlySlo seemed like the ultimate street racing genius. He had the money, the respect, and the closest cops could get to him was seeing his exhaust fumes disappearing down the highway. It seemed he had cracked the code that so many before him had failed to do. But behind the scenes, not everything was as it seemed. A darker realization was beginning to dawn on him that he hadn't counted on when beginning down this path. The anonymity was nice, probably the only thing keeping him out of prison, but it came with a very real cost. And despite having operated from the shadows for the best part of 3 years, in April 2024, he finally decided to break his silence. Little did he know, a whole lot of trouble was about to come his way.
Welcome back to another episode of the Street Alpha Podcast. I am your host, Tukes. We are at Texas 2K, and we have the pleasure of stopping by and interviewing Slow.
Of course, Slow wasn't reckless about it. He knew he couldn't put a face to some of the criminal actions he'd taken. So, he donned his helmet, masked his voice, and prepared to confront the world for the very first time.
Let's give a round of applause for Slow.
Now, this podcast covered a lot of topics, but throughout it all, there seemed to be one main thing that Slow was keen to discuss: the cost of going anonymous.
Since I'm anonymous, driving this car is a pain in the I have to wear this stupid helmet
So you have to wear this helmet every time you drive?
every time I drive it.
He explained the drawbacks to the lifestyle he'd chosen. He could no longer live like a normal citizen. His cars had to be shipped in at 4 a.m. so they couldn't be tied to him. And worst of all, the psychological toll that all of this had taken on him was massive.
I like my life to be separate from this life, and there's things that I've done in the past that I don't necessarily want to put a face to. That way I could continue if I do some more stupid shit with this new car, with a new build. Yeah, it's best.
The podcast told us one thing above all else. The lifestyle he'd chosen wasn't for everyone. But little did he know, he had just invited an even bigger problem into his life. You see, even before he'd gone public, RlySlo had become famous for his run-ins with police. It started with subtle jibes, a number plate reading, "Will Run," merch openly taunting the cops. But over time, he began to draw attention. On February 17th, 2022, the Dallas Police Department made a post asking for information on a black Corvette speeding at 150 miles per hour down the highway, with a number plate that simply read, "Quiet." Instead of remaining silent, RlySlo decided to reply, going back and forth with officers in his DMs. The beef continued for months, and RlySlo's stunts grew bolder all the while. Already famous for his crazy modifications, he remodeled an entire car just to mock them. And anytime police got close to him, he simply unleashed the power of his Corvette C7 and disappeared into the night. Because this wasn't any ordinary car. RlySlo has a long history of doing crazy things to his vehicles. First, there's the tamest of his cars, a close-to-stock Honda NSX, imported straight from Japan. It's flashy, expensive, but nothing compared to his Gen 5 Viper, a Calvo Motorsports twin-turbo build, capable of some insane track speed.
Seeing Calvo Motorsports twin-turbo Viper, you know, I don't think this thing can actually get up and move. But no, it is actually like a super clean, low-key. If I can only beat one of the three, I'll take it. We'll just beat the NSX.
Of course, the most notorious build of all is the one he built his name on. It started life as an LT1C7 Stingray, but didn't stay that way for long. A Texas Speed 416 long block, a Magnuson 2650 supercharger, high PSI port injection, ZR1 differential, axles rated at 1,400 horsepower plus. RlySlo's C7 is about as far from stock as you can get, and as you can imagine, it's pretty quick. And here's the thing, all these modifications posed a big problem for cops. Every sighting and near miss only reinforced one realization: they simply couldn't keep up. RlySlo's cars were so quick, he had cops from different districts messaging him, wanting to rep his number plates on their squad cars. This meant the cars were doing exactly what they were designed to do: keep him out of a jail cell. But RlySlo wasn't about to give police an inch. In fact, he believed they were partly to blame for creating the toxic culture in street racing today, where everything has to be faster, flashier, louder. You see, it's no revelation that street racing crimes in the US are rapidly on the rise, but according to many, it's the taunting approach of police that's fueling it. Rather than tracking racers down behind the scenes and dealing with them quietly, many departments try to fight fire with fire, starting online beefs which only add to the racers' infamy. And if there was one thing RlySlo didn't want, it was more eyes on the movement he'd rather keep hidden. But the rise in one toxic aspect of street racing has drawn more criticism from him than any other. See, his approach to street racing is the same as his approach to creating content. The safety comes first, then the excitement.
And I personally think that takeovers will lead to the decline of all the car scene in totality. The takeover guys, I hate them. A lot of their key arguments are, the only ones getting hurt are the ones participating. Not true. You go on Instagram and swipe twice and you see somebody die over, and Instagram is complicit too because they push those videos to younger people.
And for all those watching, Slow made a pretty compelling case. He believes the closure of many organized racetracks has led people to look for illegal alternatives. In the past year alone, racers have lost the I-64 Motorplex in Kentucky, the Battlefield Drag Strip in Mississippi, and even the Irwindale Speedway, which had been in operation for 25 years. This poses a problem. He's built an entire empire based on discretion. So with the movement he loves becoming ever louder, with the cops antagonizing and the online personas amplifying, his choice to remain hidden becomes more restrictive every day. And worst of all, even if he wanted to get out, he's in too deep. All that's left is to try to keep a lid on things from the sidelines and let the cars do the speaking.